I'm the co-chair of the Vermont Future Caucus chapter.
And you have the same role in your state's Future Caucus. So tell me a little bit about it and why you're attending.
Yeah, absolutely. But first of all, thank you for having us here today. The Future Summit to me is about building bridges and bipartisanship. And I think it's really important for us to understand that you don't have to compromise your principles to build bridges and to find compromise.
So how important do you think it is, as you think of Congress, for it to be embracing young voices? And when you think about the fact that they're, of course, having to govern and possibly be bipartisan in some ways, what do you make of that?
Representative Stone?
As far as having a seat at the table, it's super important. Here in America, we are privileged to have a representative democracy. And so I really feel, especially the district I represent 2 college campuses. So I really am uplifting and representing the voices of the people I represent, which are largely young people.
Yeah, and I think that's important to represent. I represent DePaul University and Wabash College, and I'm constantly out speaking to young people. I think it's important, regardless of their political leaning, it's important for them to be engaged, because it's important for them to know what makes America exceptional.
Yeah, and we have some, of course, news in the Democratic Party that I want to ask you about, Representative Stone. We have 33-year-old Saron Mamdani, who, of course, has a striking win in New York's mayoral race, and I should say his Democratic primary race for right now, but it's seen as a big part of whether or not he's going to be the ultimate mayor of the city. But I wonder for you, is it an encouraging sign that the Democratic Party is choosing someone like him to lead at the top of the ticket, and especially when you think about sort of the road to get there?
Right. I think it's honestly exciting no matter what side of the aisle you find yourself on, just because of the impact that we saw on getting young people engaged in the process of knocking doors, of attending town halls. So not only the candidate himself, but I mean, the volunteer support that he brought out and the turnout at the polls and the age group at the polls is super inspiring and shows that I think we're at a turning point here in America.
And what do you think, especially as a Republican, when there are some Republicans who are saying this is bad for the Democratic Party, but there are also some that say, hey, this is what we need to be looking at, because this could be a threat if Democrats do sort of hone in and this is what their base ends up getting excited about. What do you make of his success?
I think we need to back up, and I think, like Representative Stone said, I think that it's important just to see the young people involved. I think that's the critical part. If you want to look at that race and you want to take something away from it, it's encouraging to see young people getting involved in politics, regardless of the party, regardless of the candidate. It's just great to see young people getting involved.
Yeah, and of course, as we talk about bipartisanship and your goals here in Washington, we see a lot of political division. We see a lot of disagreement. I wonder, does that reflect what you're seeing in your actual state house? And I wonder, when you think about sort of what you're doing on a state level, is there anything that maybe you could learn, or people in Washington could learn, from how the states are able to do things across political lines?
I think Washington could learn a lot from states. I don't know about Vermont, but definitely Indiana. I got to give Indiana a plug. When I was first elected, I thought that every bill was going to be contentious. I was very pleased to learn, though, that this last session that we finished, we had about 300 bills. 95% of those bills had bipartisan support. 75% of those had fewer than 15 dissenting votes, and over 50% of the bills had unanimous support. And that's something that doesn't get covered in the media. So at least in Indiana, we're a state that gets work done, unlike Washington.
Yeah. And Representative Stone, there's some interesting things happening in Vermont. We saw in the legislature, it went from a Democratic supermajority to something more of an even split. I wonder, as that change has happened, has it impacted the way that you're working in your state, especially when it comes to working across the political lines?
Definitely. We had the largest turnover out of any state legislature in the nation. We also have a Republican governor and a Republican lieutenant governor. So it's really made me center compromise and collaboration. But that does not mean capitulation. It doesn't mean that I check my values at the door. It just means that I really have to reach across the aisle to get stuff done for the people I serve.
Yeah. Representative Baird, I also want to ask you, there's, of course, this massive legislation that is moving through the Congress right now, President Trump's legislative agenda. There's been a lot of talk about the cuts to Medicaid and the impact that could have on states. What are you hearing about when you think of your constituents in your state? Are you hearing some concern there, and what are your own concerns?
I'm not hearing a lot of concerns. I think that my district's very supportive of President Trump and trying to make America great again, and really fighting for what makes America exceptional.
But you're not hearing anyone say, I'm worried about rural hospitals or I'm worried about Medicaid. You're just not hearing any of that.
I'm not hearing a lot of that. I mean, I think that we're doing great work in Indiana, and I think the state legislature is really filling those gaps and the voids. And I think that we're doing great things in Indiana, so it's less of a concern. Let's face it, Washington doesn't get much done, so I think people aren't too focused on it.
What about you, Representative Sarah?
I am hearing a lot of that, and something that the legislature has been working on even prior to Trump's election, because we could kind of see what was happening before it happened, is being proactive versus reactive to protect Vermonters, to make sure that they have access to health care, that they have access to public education, so on and so forth.
Well, thank you, both of you, for coming on. I really appreciate it. A sort of window into what bipartisanship could look like. Thank you.
Thanks
for having us.